Hello, everybody, and welcome into Perspectives. I am so glad you're here today. We have some very interesting folks to talk with. And to kick it off, our first guests, plural, Colleen Stiles, president of the Tulsa Artists Coalition, and artist David Morrison. Welcome to you both.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it.
So glad you're here. I'm going to start with you, if that's all right. First of all, what is the Tulsa Artists Coalition?
The Tulsa Artists Coalition is a 501c3 volunteer-run organization. We have been an establishment in Tulsa for over 30 years, and we're originally came together to provide a space for all artists to show in. So Tulsa and surrounding areas, artists from emerging artists to established artists can show in our gallery.
I'd be curious to know, David, you obviously know her well. Mm-hmm. How important is what she does, what she supports for an artist?
It's vital. You can't understate the relationship that, Colleen's the president of the TAC, but she's also an artist herself. She's shown with groups, she knows the people she works with, she knows what it's like to stand in front of the easel or the illustration board or whatever it is and struggle, and so you can come to her and you can kind of talk together about issues being an artist. And we were just discussing this previously, like it's not easy making art. It's not easy coming up with new ideas and new concepts, but having someone that's kind of been in the trenches and makes the space available, you feel supported. Like as an emerging local artist, you feel supported. I'm
going to get back to something you touched on in just a minute, but I want to talk with her first, so rest easy.
Okay.
I'll tear into you in a minute. What gave you the idea to become involved with this? Was it already there when you started working?
I first became aware of the Tulsa Artists Coalition in the early 2000s. I was looking for places to show my own work, and they have 2 opportunities each year for anyone to enter. So we have our 5x5 show and sale every May.
What is that?
It is our fundraiser. It's the only fundraiser that we have. Artists are given 5x5 inch canvases. You can create anything you want on the canvas or in a 5x5 inch space. We have a lot of 3-dimensional pieces. Those pieces the artists donate to the gallery. The show opens the first week of May, so the 5th month out of the year, and each 5x5 is sold for $55. So that is open to anyone.
Well, clearly it's successful.
Absolutely. It is our biggest show of the year. People would line up down the street waiting for us to open the doors on opening night.
It's got to scramble your brain a little bit when it does mine just to think about it, when you come to grips with how many artists we have in the region. Mm-hmm. Because if you limit it just to painting, that's one form. Sketching is another. Sculpting is another. You can sit here and say, these are all art forms.
Absolutely.
And you've got to work with all these folks.
Yes, yes indeed.
Anything out there you don't like to work with?
No, love it all.
What's your background?
My background professionally is graphic design. But I do a lot of pen and ink work. I do some illustrations, some children's books. I also do large sculptural pieces.
What do you sculpt?
Figures.
No, in what material?
Oh, what material? They're plaster gauze body cast with found materials and paint and wood and other things added onto them.
I was watching National Geographic the other day, and I saw a piece on some stones in Scotland, and we're not talking about the ones that you're familiar with, or at least you may not be familiar, but they found these stones quite by accident as a farmer was clearing land to plant some crops. Mm-hmm. It turned out all of these stones had something on them. They'd been a part of something. And he wisely brought in experts to look at it, and they just went nuts and said, listen, what you've got here is a living, breathing chunk of the past. Mm-hmm. And it speaks to the future. And now they pay him not to farm. and they're trying to resurrect what the stones represented and how. When did you get interested in painting?
I've been interested in painting, really painting, once I went to college. I started really drawing when I was about 4 or 5, and I'm not saying it was a good drawing, but I remember my grandmother sitting at the table having her morning coffee, and there was just some urge in me to draw her. So with just the blue pen and a little notebook there, I just set out to do that. And I feel like that planted the seed that kind of let me, explore. And like we were kind of talking about the stones, like that mark making, that's something about that initial mark making that stays with you, that, pushes it forward and makes you want to explore that. But I really got into painting. I did really large oil paintings in college, and even my first show at the TAC was all large oil paintings at that time. I felt like I'd taken trips to California, New York. I'd been in some of the major galleries in the world, and the scale was overwhelming. So it was just like, I need to match this.
Well, I think we have some examples of your work
Okay.
that we're gonna show. This, for example.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
This is a mixed media piece from my show that's opening in December called Yesterday Night. And this is a portrait called Flannel. And it's also, there's some oil paint, acrylic paint for the figure underneath. And what I'm trying to do with this series, just with portraits itself, going back as far as you can, we're always fascinated with ourselves, with the portrait, what we're looking at. And I'm no different than that. And I feel like the last few years, so many people I talk to, whether it's colleagues or family or friends, everyone's dealing with so many issues. And I thought, well, how do I translate some of this into that work? How do I peel back those layers to kind of show that anxiety and that change that people are dealing with? This is a piece that's called Loose Threads. I feel like it kind of speaks for itself with just the symbolism of the scissors. And it's about, cutting off things that don't serve you and trying to wrap up things, whether that's something that's been holding you back, something you want to pursue. And I've been trying to, in these pieces, it may be hard to tell on camera, but they're layered. So when I start a picture like this, it's usually maybe up to 5 or 6 or 7 versions of the same face stacked on top of each other. Because as people, even having this conversation now, our expressions change, our feelings change. And I thought, how do you capture that? How do you put that on paper that a viewer can walk up to it and see, I see what you're doing here. I see that transition.
We're fast losing time. I want to go to, do we have another? And here it is again. The thing I keep seeing here is the single eye. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, that's one of the things I do is you cover what you choose to see and what you choose to omit, whether that's some truths that you just don't want to deal with anymore. A lot of times, a lot of my work and a lot of pieces in the show too either have one eye covered or one eye purposely crossed out. And sometimes I'll do the same thing with the mouth, whether it's like things you can't say or the words you can't find.
How important is the work that Colleen does to artists such as yourself?
Again, it can't be understated. Like, I can reach out to Colleen for guidance. I will be supported with anything I need, whether that's hanging a show, an idea. We were kind of joking about this, like titles for a show, whatever it is. I will be supported. That's the best part about being a member of the TAC. Is in 10 years, I've never felt not supported in what I've done, and I can't understate, how important that is as an artist when you're already, overwhelmed trying to create work, that you have people you can talk to, you can lean on, and get the advice that you probably need.
Wow, sounds like you're doing good work, kid.
Thank you.
What's next for you?
Well, what's next for TAC? We have an opening this Friday, a show called Decimation, which is, I'm going to check my notes. It is a collaboration focused on massive contemporary biodiversity loss and despeciation as a result of human behavior. And this is a show put together by Christian Overstake and Robin Baker, who are unable to be here today.
Interesting work. I want to thank both of you for coming in. We were talking before we started to tape the show today. We owe women so much in this part of the world in particular. Folks just don't realize, if you go all the way back to the beginning of Tulsa, we'd have no symphony, we'd have no opera, we'd have no art, were it not for the wives who came with the husbands who were chasing black gold. The wives couldn't get into the oil business, so They gave us the arts,
They brought the culture.
and we all came out ahead. Thank you both for coming in.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Sam. We
much.
appreciate
And I
it.
look forward to seeing more from you
Okay.
and hearing more from you.
Thank you.
All right.